Hello and welcome to ASCS 1103. This is Engineer Swanda. We are starting off with introduction to computers. So obviously when we're talking about computers, we're going to start by discussing the two key terms that we associate with computers today. That is IT and ICT. Now by definition, IT refers to the entire industry that comprises of our computers, network, software, and other equipment that are used to manage information. So generally that infrastructure is managed by what are called IT departments, but it is entirely the whole industry. But ICT is a term that is used in association with the education context, which refers to the utilization of digital technologies. So on that table there, I'm showing a comparison between ICT and IT. So the comparison is based on the acronym, the field, the function, the place, and the industry or extension. But basically, the key issues here are to do with the IT being the entire industry comprising of our infrastructure, networks, computers, and software, while the ICT being a term used in association with the education field. Now let's look at some of the definitions in the computer related terms. Right? What is a computer? A computer is a digital device that accepts input and processes it to produce output. So the input is the data, while the output is the information. So in essence, the computer accepts the data, processes it to produce information. But what is data? Data are raw facts and figures, which are symbols which you cannot use to make a decision. But information is organized, meaningful, and useful. So when data is processed, it produces information. Hardware are the physical or tangible components of a computer, for example, printers, monitors, speakers, etc. While peripheral devices are those devices connected and controlled by the CPU, which are connected to the CPU. Software refers to the programs or series of instructions that tell hardware what to do and how to perform the tasks. So without software, most of our hardware becomes useless. Backing storage refers to the permanent storage or external storage, which is used to store the large quantities of data on our computer system. And the user that's you and me, the person who communicates with the computer or uses the information that is generated by the computer. Now let's move on to functionalities of a computer. Any digital computer carries out 5 major functions. Number 1, it takes input. After taking the input, it stores the instructions in the memory and uses it when it is required. Then thirdly, it processes the data to convert it to information. Then it generates output as a result. Then it also controls all the above 4 processes. So from the picture there, you can see the data there coming into the computer. There's processing happening within the computer system. Then you get information as the output. Now we move on to the major building blocks of a computer. The computer is made up of 2 major building blocks. That is the computer hardware and the computer software. So from the left hand side, you see the computer hardware. So you see there's a desktop computer there, a laptop, a motherboard, a processor, power supply unit, the keyboard, hard drives, memory modules, abbreviated as RAM for random access memory. All those are examples of computer hardware. Now the software on the right hand side of your screen, you see browsers there, you see the Internet Explorer, the Adobe Reader, media players, email applications, you see Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Outlook there. All those are examples of software. Now let's move on to computer hardware. What is computer hardware? Computer hardware refers to the physical or tangible components of a computer. So those things we can touch like hard drives, like graphic cards, like sound cards, like motherboards, those make up computer hardware. Now the main components of a computer in terms of hardware are input devices, output devices, secondary storage media, central processing unit, and the memory. Now, to represent the computer in terms of hardware, we use what is called the von Neumann architecture. The von Neumann architecture represents a computer in the form of a four-stage model. So it depicts the input devices, the processing elements, the output, and the memory. So you can see the data coming from the input going to the CPU being made up of the control unit, the arithmetic and logic unit, and the registers. Then there's movement of arrows there, data being passed between the CPU and the memory. Then there's output going to the output devices. That is the four-stage model of a computer in terms of hardware, also referred to as the von Neumann architecture.